Welcome back everyone, and welcome if you are new here. My name is Cherie and I like to talk about fragrances, mostly anything to do with any kind of fragrance, and sometimes I might touch on other topics as well, but usually we're talking about fragrance related products. So I've had quite a busy day today and I have been running around visiting friends and running errands. I figured I might do a slightly quicker video, what I hope to be a quicker video today, and that is to talk about some sample snippets. Now, I did one of these videos sometime last year, it was a few months ago, with the intention of doing it every month, and that clearly didn't happen, but I do intend to pick this back up again because I think it's a really good way for me to work through my samples and work out which ones I like and which ones I don't. And I also document it by making notes, and so then I feel okay about handing on the samples that I have tried so that other people can try them. So today I'm going to talk about 5 fragrances that I have sampled recently, and these are just random samples that I selected out of my sample decant bucket. It's a very big bucket, and yeah, so I'm just going to jump right in because we don't have an awful lot of time. So the first one is actually a decant that I got through my subscription to a company called Unique You. They are a European, I think based in Germany. They are a subscription service that send out samples or this size decant of niche perfumes in the industry. So they have a whole heap of niche perfumes that you can choose from on their website. This post is not sponsored, by the way, but I have been a member, or have had a subscription for about 12 months now, and I'm quite enjoying it. So this one is one that I hadn't heard of before. It was a house that I hadn't heard of or come across in my travels, and it's called Nima Oud Line 3. I don't know if it's Nima or Nema. I'll put the name up on the screen anyway. This one is okay, it's not too bad. This is a line of fragrances that's obviously centered around oud in some way or shape or form. And this particular one is a rose fragrance, so a rose oud fragrance. It opens okay. It actually just sort of opens like a typical rose oud fragrance. It's not too heavy, the oud isn't too barnyardy. It's just giving it, the rose, that nice depth. I feel like there might be patchouli in here as well. But then very soon into the wear, it does get kind of soapy, which is okay, but not what I was expecting. The soapiness kind of makes the fragrance sort of just okay. It's nice, it's not unlikable, but it's not really blowing me away either. The oud is very subtle and probably most prominent in the opening when you first spray it. It's a very clean oud, and as I said, it's not very barnyardy at all. And obviously it smells quite clean because then you get that soapiness coming through. So it's a very clean smelling oud fragrance. So once those initial notes of the rose and the oud die down a little bit or settle in a little bit more, the florals really take over in this fragrance though, after that initial sort of blast of the oud and the rose together. And then, you know, obviously they develop that soapiness. It's that real floral kind of soapiness that isn't offensive or anything, but it's kind of not what I want in a perfume, but it would make a fantastic soap. I would say though that even though this isn't blowing me away in terms of originality or anything like that, it feels like it's a really good quality perfume made from really good quality ingredients. The oud doesn't smell synthetic-y or sharp like it can in some fragrances. So for that reason, I'm actually I'd say I quite enjoy this fragrance, but I probably wouldn't bother to buy a full bottle of it myself. I'd say that it's good, it's okay, but it's definitely better than a lot of other oud rose fragrances that I've smelled in terms of, I think, quality of ingredients and how well it's blended and how non-synthetic it smells. I think it's a great perfume. I just don't think it's that inspiring or unique, but that's fine. And sometimes I don't mind that, but in this particular instance, this one is not for me. The next one is Jasmine et Cigarette by État Libre d'Orange. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, but I had a go. This one, I just got it on my nose. This one I really like actually, but I don't know in what circumstance I would be able to wear it. You definitely get the jasmine in this, and it's actually quite a green jasmine-y kind of fragrance. And I don't know what's giving it that cigarette, ashy kind of vibe, but it's definitely there. And it has like an undercurrent or like a string of something that's kind of dark, but not overpoweringly dark in this fragrance. And I think that's where it's sort of, maybe it's related to something that's giving that cigarette ashy smell to this fragrance, which sounds bad, but it actually isn't. It's really interesting, and it goes so well with that jasmine. I actually really like this, but I'm just not sure in what circumstance I would wear this. It actually, to me, it conjures an image of, and this is going to be so stereotypical, so I apologize, but it sort of conjures up an image of a really chic French lady in like a black turtleneck, smoking a cigarette, and the smell of the cigarette is blending with her perfume that, you know, she's been wearing for a few hours already, you know, and so and the cigarette smoke is in her clothes, and so the perfume and the cigarette is sort of really well blended together. And it just becomes part of her presence and her smell. I feel like this isn't a very clean smelling fragrance, obviously because you've got that cigarette in there, but I also don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't feel like the jasmine is what's giving it a dirty vibe. I really do feel like it's coming from something else that is contributing to that sort of cigarette-y, ashy kind of feel to it. And when I say dirty, I don't mean animalic. It just feels a bit gritty, you know? Like you've been sitting for a couple of hours on a sidewalk in Paris, smoking cigarettes and drinking red wine, and you've got a bit of the grime from the street, but you're clean, you know? It also has at the same time has a very clean or fresh sort of feel to it as well. The dirtiness is sort of giving you an impression that it's just it's overlaid on the top of a clean body type of thing, as though it's actually the environment that's imparted the dirtiness, not the body of the person wearing it. So the person wearing it is very freshly clean. I hope that makes sense. I do really like the jasmine note in this. I feel like it's a little bit different, and it's a very interesting perfume. And again, I really love it, but I just don't know when I would wear it. And so I probably wouldn't bother getting a full bottle of this, but it has inspired me to explore this house a little bit more, because I haven't really delved into this house very much, and now I really want to. The next one is called White Diamante, and it's by a house called Omnia Profumi. Now this one I did actually find to be quite challenging. This one, unfortunately, it's a gourmand. It's meant to be very sweet. It's got a very prominent chocolate note in it. I definitely get the chocolate in this. But unfortunately, it also has something in it that is either very salty or very synthetic. And I don't know if it has ambergris in this. Certainly from the notes on Fragrantica, it's simply chocolate, vanilla, and coffee. I don't really get the coffee in here, and the synthetic sweetness in here is just overwhelming and nose burning to me, unfortunately. It actually reminds me quite a lot of Sorcery by Oakshire, which I know has been quite popular, but for me that was a no as well, similar reasons. And maybe this has something in there that's similar to that. That was meant to be a very salty kind of gourmand. This again doesn't say that it has any sort of salty kind of notes in it, but maybe that's what it is. I did give my sample of the Oakshire away to a friend, but I'm pretty sure if I had them side by side, there'd be similarities. They wouldn't be exactly the same, but there's similarities. So I think if you have tried the Sorcery by Oksha and you like that, you might like this, but it's just not me. The next one is actually one that I don't have a sample of in front of me because I can't remember where I've put it. And I just thought, well, I've got comprehensive notes, so I can just talk to the fragrance, even though I can't physically sort of smell it right now. And so the fragrance in question is Siberian Rose by Fragrance du Bois. This opened with such promise of a beautiful, sweet rose fragrance, although I'm not sure I get the reference to Siberian rose, but then I don't really know much about roses, so I don't know if roses even grow in Siberia. But in any case, it opened, when I first spritzed it on my skin, I remember very distinctly that it had a really full-bodied, sweet rose note to it, and it was really, really good. And I was thinking that, oh, I need to introduce my friend Emma to this one because she really loves rose fragrances. And in fact, I think she might be a contributing factor as to why I suddenly started liking rose fragrances. But then after about 5 or 10 minutes, it completely changed. The sweetness from the pear note, which I'm assuming most of the sweetness was coming from pear because there is a pear note in the top, that sort of really dies down quite a lot. And then the rose does a magic disappearing act and completely disappears and is replaced with tuberose. And I just really wasn't expecting that. I didn't know anything about this fragrance when I sampled it, but I was just really surprised because I just wasn't expecting tuberose. I was expecting rose, obviously. Then as the tuberose started to take over, I was getting some very distinctive sort of green, sort of mossy notes. And then the person I was with at the time, my friend Joanna, confirmed that there is actually oak moss listed as a note in this fragrance. Now, I am not afraid of oak moss by any means, as you would have gathered from my last few videos. I'm really getting into the vintage fragrances right now, and particularly chypres. So the oak moss is not a problem for me. I like mossy fragrances, as it turns out. But what did bother me about this fragrance was how the tuberose just really came in and kind of drowned everything else out. And that sort of stayed that way for a good couple of hours. And then after a few hours, it sort of morphed into a woody tuberose fragrance. So there was more woods that came through. I don't know what woods. In the dry down, I was getting, occasional wafts of sort of sweeter kind of notes, but it was kind of really hit and miss in terms of getting any sort of sweetness other than from this bubblegummy tuberose. So what started out as being a very promising, beautiful rose fragrance very quickly morphed into a bubblegummy tuberose with a woody base. I would say that the woody notes nicely balance the opening sweet notes of that pear and the tuberose as well, but for the price, I just don't know if I could justify buying this perfume. If I want that kind of tuberose fragrance, I'd probably be more likely to reach for, I don't know, a BDK Tuberose Imperial. And last but not least is 1873 by Histoire de Parfum. I don't know where this came from. I don't remember buying it. I'm pretty sure I did not buy this. Somebody must have given it to me because I don't know what might have possessed me to buy this. But anyway, if I did, then, or maybe it was sent with another bottle that I had purchased from them. I can't remember. I do try to buy directly from perfumers if I can, if they ship to Australia. So sometimes when I do that, the perfumer uses their discretion to throw something else in. And I think that's the only way I could explain how this ended up in my collection. So in any case, we're talking about it now. Okay, so this is very heavy on citrus, but to me, I feel like I get an herbal element to this, although there are no herbal notes listed. It has a very sharp, hang on, let me just spritz it. It has a very orangey opening actually, but then it develops sort of a sharp kind of, I guess, tea note, a sharp herbal tea note, and it gets right in the back of my nose, you know, right in my nasal cavity. Right where my nasal cavity meets my throat, basically, is where I feel this. I actually get a physical sensation from smelling this. It's nice. It's, as I said, it's very citrusy, and I've just looked at the notes and there's a whole pile of citruses in there. So I would say that it's a unisex fragrance, but I think maybe just leans just slightly masculine. That sharpness does remain, and all the way through to the dry down. It's quite a linear fragrance for me. It doesn't change that much over time. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm okay with linear fragrances. The only thing I would say though is that the texture of the fragrance kind of changes a little bit into the dry down. So I feel like it gets a little bit more creamy or something, kind of like a shaving cream, which, you know, maybe softens that sharp edge just a little bit, but not too much. Overall, I'm not sure if this is something that I would wear, but I certainly can't imagine myself reaching for this. I feel like there are other citrus fragrances that I would rather reach for, but Matt might enjoy this. And I should also point out the fact that even though I relate this to tea, I don't think this actually is a tea fragrance. I don't think it has a tea note in it, but that's just the kind of sensation I get from it. You know, when you get one of those really herbal, fruity sort of teas, and they're kind of, I don't know, a bit squeaky in your nose or on your palate. That's kind of what I get from this. I don't know if that makes any sense. Is it just me? I'm sure it's not just me. So there you go, there you have it. That's my 5 sample snippets. First one for the year. Hopefully I can maintain the momentum, because there's a massive box of samples to get through, and this is the only way I can think of to force myself to get through them. So I guess keep an eye out for a monthly video on sample snippets. And of course, if there's anything in particular that you would like me to sample or try to sample, then feel free to post that down in the comments and give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And let me know if you've tried any of the fragrances that I talked about today and what you thought of them. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.